guys for coming. I like to give options, and my husband dislikes that, but for my kiddos, stand up, sit down, stand up. Okay. I'll stand up. I'm going to switch over here. Maybe. I'll stand.
As long as we're here good enough to get the message, I wouldn't care if you sit down or sit up, but sit down fine as long as we just get the message here.
Right. Well, and my concern is
the soundproof building, I think, is hurting us. Soundproof rooms, and we're not getting the sound there.
Right, and if I use the mic, then they can hear me on the other side.
So maybe more of us should move closer to you.
You're more than welcome to join me up here. Yes.
That's why we chose to sit up here.
There you go. I like it. Okay, so most of you have met me already. My name is Gladys Godinez. I am from Lexington, Nebraska, born in Guatemala City. My presentation's name is ICE in Rural Nebraska. I've lived in rural Nebraska most of my life. But I want to, and I hope it's okay with you, I want to talk a little bit more about my experience in O'Neill. When I was asked to speak.
Your talk is going into this room, and we were wondering if our talk is...
I don't have my mic on.
Is the mic on?
We can't hardly hear her. I think one of us needs to move to a different room.
Should stop. Okay, yeah, so I'm sorry.
No, that's okay.
Fair is fair. I turned off their microphone in there, so fair is fair.
Fair is fair, yes. So I hope, when I was asked to do this conversation, it was before O'Neill. And now, post-O'Neill, I think it's adequate, if it's okay with you guys, to share the personal experience that I had while I was there.
Yes.
I don't have a lot of pictures. I know PowerPoint is usually good with pictures, or you want to see vision. We're vision learners, visual learners. But I apologize, during the time that I was there, I did not have time to take pictures.
That's okay, sure.
So just be aware, I'm here if you have any questions. I was there, and I can share as much as I can regarding that, okay? I am Executive Director of the Trinidad Center, but I'm also a Community Organizer for the Center for Rural Affairs. And then this is what I plan to go over today. So I plan to go over my story, which you've already heard, but I'll talk a little bit further about it. Introduction to ICE. What is ICE? Who are they, and who pays them, and how many of them are there? ICE presence in rural Nebraska. I can talk about Omaha too, but I think Omaha and Lincoln have a lot of advocates, and rural Nebraska needs a voice as well. So my hope is to speak on behalf of rural Nebraska. O'Neill raid response. So I'll talk about my experience there, before the raid, during the raid, and then after the raid. And then action steps to respond. Now this is very limited, but I'll give you resources. And if you would like more information, I can definitely jot down your email, and I can email you a resource sheet with all the information that I have, okay? So originally a presentation is data-based. This one's emotionally based, person-based, my experience-wise, but I have done a lot of research, so if you want numbers, I can definitely give those to you, okay? Okay, so my story. I've introduced myself, maybe my parents as well. On the left, you'll see our family, and I get emotional. It's like my voice cracks, I may cry. Just bear with me a little bit. So in the left side, you'll meet my mom. On the right, well, let me introduce you. My mom's Maria. Top is my dad. His name is Carlos. And then the oldest is Carlos as well, Carlos Jr. And the second oldest, to the left-hand side of my dad, his name's Caesar. And then myself, I'm the middle child. And then Rosangela was on the right side of my mom. And then Jonathan's our youngest, who's at the very top left. So why am I introducing you to my family? I don't come alone, right? I come with what's behind me, what's my history. And I didn't have a really good picture of my grandma, or else I would have introduced you to her too. Okay. Both of my parents immigrated to the United States. My dad immigrated first, and then he sent money for us to get passports and come in a visa. So we came via airplane. We didn't have to do the route that he did, thanks to him working a lot and then sending money our way. And then after that, we came to Inglewood, Lexington. I graduated from UNK with a political science degree, and then I worked in human services most of my life. Since I was 15, I believe I've been an advocate for our immigrant population. I've started groups within high school, college, and post-college. I've definitely been active in advocacy work. This is a result. So I want to introduce what they do, not because that's who they are, but because of what you can accomplish as an immigrant, right? So my parents both worked at Tyson. My dad is retired. My oldest brother, he owns Nick's Gyros across the street from UNK. So if you're from Kearney, then he owns that restaurant. And then the second oldest, he's a project engineer for Manhattan Construction out of Omaha. Myself, I'm a community organizer and trying to develop my own nonprofit. My sister, she works for ACLU, and she's a policy analyst. And then Jonathan, he's going for a psychology degree at UW-Madison. So, if you didn't know a family before, you have met mine, okay? And then on the right-hand side, you see my family. In addition to my family, my husband Chris, he's from New York, the Bronx, and our two kids, Esperanza and Cannon. Okay? This is who I am. I have worked again in advocacy since I was 15. I think I have had to learn how to advocate on behalf of myself and my family at a very young age. When we first came to Lexington, we were not wanted. There was a white flight. A lot of white residents moved away from Lexington because we came. There was a lot of racism, hence why I started a group in my high school years. I have developed into this person, but I also see it in my sister, who's ACLU, and then my little brother, who's starting also programs in UW-Madison. Okay? Thanks. All right, thank you. I do want to disclose two things before I start. First, I'm not married to Dr. Aviles. I guess there was insinuation earlier. The gentleman that was sitting next to me at the... Yeah, he's just my professor from political science. I knew that he would get my feminist joke, so that's why I looked at him when I said it. But he's now my husband. Very nice, but he has a partner and I'm married. So. And then secondly, the bad apple conversation that we had earlier, I want to extend that a little further because I've had a couple of comments and said good and bad, and they're just questionable things about Latinos. And my concern is that we're basing stereotypes on the limited interaction that we have with Latinos or anybody of any other race. So if the only interaction you have is a negative interaction, then yes, I understand why you have that belief, that stereotype. My request then is for you to kind of step out of your box. Get out of your circle. You know, get to know us. Get to know what we're all about. If not, you know, we're not a stereotype, just like you are not a stereotype, right? So I wouldn't want to impose that stereotype on you. So don't do it to me. Deal?
Deal.
Okay. Yeah.
Along that same line, though, I have friends or people I know that they've had good interaction with people, and yet they still buy the rhetoric. And so I challenge them if you go by your own experiences, that you know is true. You know, but they really have a hard time with that because they've been taught and told
forever.
Right. Well, even recently.
Right, right. Well, and one of the things for the Trinidad Center that we did a United by Culture festival. So when I was here, we still have at UNK what is called the International Festival, which is an awesome festival here in Kearney. You're welcome to come. I think it's every March. I'm not sure if it's the end of the year or the beginning of the year. But there is an international festival. It's free. You will see different cultures performing their various dances, talking about the history of their culture and country. And then you can also eat free food from more than 30 to 50 countries. I mean, that's a beautiful thing. So in Lexington, we're also very diverse, but we don't have the ability to celebrate that diversity, not just yet. But last year I started the United by Culture Festival. We had 1,000 people come. It's a free festival, kid-friendly, family-friendly, and it also showcases the cultures within Lexington. So our hope this year we had 1,000 people show up again. So to me that's just telling me, hey, there's a need for this, there's a need for safe space for us to interact and for us to learn from each other. My main role as a community organizer for Center for Rural Affairs is inclusion work. And that's what I signed up for. Okay? That's my full-time job. A week before the raid, I knew that a raid was coming. And I'll share with you as to how I knew that. I asked my supervisor, and she asked her supervisor. I asked, hey, we know there's rumblings of a raid. Can I help assist if it were to happen? And both of them said yes. So my job is inclusion work, but they said, hey Gladys, you can go help with a raid if it were to happen. Okay? So if you want any help with inclusion work within your communities, that's also something I can help with. Okay? Oh, I didn't even go over that. Okay, so let's talk about ice. So it's really nice with your Coke, Diet Coke, and Pepsi, maybe Sprite if you like it, some Jack and Coke. That's not the type of ice I'm talking about. Previously it was called INS, now it's called ICE. So basically it enforces federal laws governing border control, customs, trade and immigration to promote homeland security and public safety. It was created in 2003 based off of what was called before INS. Okay? And INS is, well, ICE is Immigration and Customs Enforcement. INS is Immigration and Naturalization Service. Okay? ICE has now 20,000 employees, 400 offices in the United States, and a budget of $6 billion. It has four, but the main three ones are Homeland Security investigations, Enforcement and Removal Operations, Office of the Principal Legal Advisory, and then the fourth one is the Management and Administration. So the one that we see due to raids and deportations is Enforcement and Removal Operations. Okay? And this, I got it all off Homeland Security's website. Okay, so ICE in rural Nebraska. Detention facilities. Specifically in rural Nebraska, we have Hall County. In Hall County, we also have an office for ICE. And it's in Grand Island. And they have check-ins there, and they detain people there. That's where they detained the people that came from O'Neill. Okay, so they went up to O'Neill, took a bus and a lot of vans, and came back to Grand Island and kept them at the ICE detention center that they have in Grand Island. We talked a little bit about 287G. Again, 287G is a program that allows the county official or city official to collaborate with ICE, which it would be like deputizing police officers and deputies to do ICE work. So if I get pulled over, before, the police officer and or deputy would never be able to ask me for citizenship status. Now, the deputy is able to ask about citizenship status. Okay? The only place that we know that has signed a memorandum is Dakota County, which is the South Sioux City. Large Latino population there. In rural Nebraska, we have seen activity. So the pattern that we're seeing before O'Neill was that they would go to different employers, small employers, specifically construction work and or restaurants. So we have seen activity throughout the year. We knew that 7 were picked up in Scottsbluff, 35 or 38 in Omaha. We knew that in Grand Island they picked up, I think, a week or two before the raid, they picked up 7 to 10 individuals out of a restaurant. So we were seeing a pattern of individuals getting detained due to their workplace, meaning a restaurant or a construction site, or because they had a warrant for one person, yet they detained everybody that didn't have documentation within the location that they went to for that warrant. Okay? And the reason why I put Scottsbluff, I am aware that they did go to Scottsbluff and target a construction site there. The reason why I put Holdrege is Phelps County actively holds people for ICE. In the O'Neill raid, we had one individual specifically that I am aware of. They withheld his medical, his medicine. So we had to, and I bring a lot of people with me, so I'll share with you who we is. We had to fight for him to get his medicine. Okay? Wilbur also works with ICE. They detain a lot of people. What we're seeing is they get picked up, let's say in Lexington, but then they get transported to Wilbur. And if you know, Lexington to Wilbur is about 2 hours to 2.5 hours. So imagine a family, low income, maybe no car, maybe no transportation, having to try to advocate on behalf of their family member in Wilbur, Nebraska. And then Grand Island, of course, we have that check-in and that detention center there. And the main office for USCIS in Nebraska is in Omaha, Nebraska. So talk about barriers. If you're from Scottsbluff and you have a court date and or a check-in or to go get your fingerprints, you have to drive through the state to be able to go to Omaha to get those fingerprints or to go to court or whatever it may be. And we talked about vulnerability and barriers. We're talking about possibly $500 to $750 being charged to that individual to transport them from Scottsbluff to Omaha. We know that from O'Neill, some people are charging $150 to $300 to transport people from O'Neill to Grand Island, just to go to their check-in. $500 from O'Neill to Omaha, to go to their court.
ICE is charging them?
No, just individuals, sorry.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yep, just individuals. So people praying.
Yeah.
People praying
Yeah.
on people's circumstance.
And then there's some people that get into this country, I believe maybe there's a fellow that brings up a busload or a truckload in Newman, and he kind of takes a lot of their wages. He finds them a job, finds their wages, and he keeps their wages for finding them a job, I believe. It's part of the way the social, part of the way the capitalism works, the government, I believe. So.
Well, what the gentleman mentioned is how people bring them from across the border, charge a ridiculous amount of money. What I know from Guatemala, during the Trump election, it was $30,000 to $40,000 to transport them as a coyote, to bring them to the border and keep them in the United States. So they're in debt, $40,000 to $50,000 by the time they just get on that car or whatever that place is. And then they come to the United States, so then they're indentured workers, because in this situation at O'Neill, JP Sons LLC, I believe that's the name, they hired them, but they said, you owe me this much for your work permit. You owe me this much for your social security number. You owe me this much. So it is considered slavery, right? Indentured slavery.
And one more question, you told about Scottsbluff at around $500–600 what it was to get to Omaha for
right.
fingerprinting. And is that our government, or is that a private deal that's charging that $600 to drive them across there?
It's a private entity. So just us, you know, like, oh, you need a ride? I got you. $500 and you're there.
That's our part of our capitalism, then.
Right.
Capitalistic ways.
Yes. Always looking for money.
Does the Trinidad Center coordinate volunteers that might do that transporting?
So, I know at this moment regarding O'Neill specifically, we have been having the church coordinate those court rides. We are facilitating financial assistance, so we are giving money, gas money, to be able to go to Omaha. But the risk is high, right? So if an undocumented person drives from O'Neill all the way to Omaha and they get caught, chances are they're going to get detained because they don't have a driver's license. And then higher risk of deportation because they're not supposed to be driving in the first place. Yes?
That costs so much. Aren't they allowed to go on a Greyhound bus?
Well, that's interesting. I think Greyhound from O'Neill to Grand Island does not go.
No.
But let's talk about Greyhound. So the Greyhound has allowed Custom and Border Patrol agents to get on their bus and ask for citizenship status. So because I've watched that in the news and the Spanish channels, I don't trust Greyhound. Yes.
Just to back up Gladys, I have witnessed on the passenger trains when I traveled from Chicago to New York, the Border Patrol coming on the train, and they actually did take off one worker. He was a Latino. And so I have friends that don't have papers, which I don't even care. We shouldn't even care, and we shouldn't even ask. But I have friends that when they travel cross country, we drive. We don't put them on a plane. We don't put them on a bus. We don't put them on a train. We don't because I think it was Christian or somebody, Gladys, maybe this morning pointed out. It's like a small army on the borders and throughout the country. Here, I'll stop.
All right. Well, thank you for sharing. Well, hold on. Give me a second. Yes?
I was just going to ask, because I couldn't tell whether you were inferring that there's some intervention in the community of O'Neill to prevent that kind of rip-off of folks that are susceptible. Is there any kind of information going to the folks that are susceptible, that need this transportation, to find other alternatives that are more within reason?
Yes. Yes, and I can talk a little bit more about that here in a few minutes, okay?
Because if they need help with this, it would be, well, you already know O'Neill's near and dear to us. And so if other people are talking about these things and encouraging the right thing to happen rather than the wrong thing, that maybe is something that we need to help with in some way.
Right, right, agreed. And I think one of the ways, if you want to help, and I'll show it towards the end, is definitely financial assistance, because I can guarantee that that will go to them. Yes?
So the question I had, to kind of follow up on what you were saying, can I stop a private vehicle if their only concern is a non-driver?
What do you mean?
So, for example, in Omaha, the chief of police we've met with him a number of times, and he has said that as long as the driver has a driver's license, then they have no power to ask for other IDs of non-drivers in the car. Is that true for ICE agents as well?
If I stopped you, he's going to ask everybody.
But
He can do that legally.
Yes, but they have the right to not answer.
Okay, but they don't have to provide ID or a license.
As a passenger, clarification, I'm not an attorney, so definitely ask an attorney for that. But from my understanding, I can come into a car and ask everybody's status. But as my right, I have the right to say my name, which that is the only law in the state that you only have to do is say your name. Say you're going to remain silent, you obtain an attorney, and that's it. So you have that right, but chances are the undocumented population does not know that they have that.
Okay, does the agent then have the ability to detain you on that basis if you don't have ID?
Not an attorney, but I'm going to say yes. Until if they want to push it, yes.
You're allowed to make a mistake.
Right. Did you have a question?
Yeah, basically, I was going to ask whether they have the right to arrest you. Yes.
Okay. All right, so we talked about their presence. All right, so let's talk about O'Neill. I said I knew something was going to happen, right? And how do you know, Gladys? You know, we have been, since the election, we have been very vigilant as to staying connected throughout the state with other advocates for immigration. So we knew that a month before, I had made reservations at 3 different hotels in Grand Island, up to 50 to 75 rooms. We didn't know that they were going to be here 3 weeks ago or today, right? So we knew 3 weeks. We were very vigilant during that time. We're like, okay, we know there's 50 rooms reserved, but we didn't know when they were reserved for and when they were going to come. So they finally came. ICE came, and they had a mobile command center. It looks like a police truck. It has a satellite on the top. It looks like a SWAT vehicle with a satellite on top. It's called the Mobile Command Center. So we had seen it at the Grand Island check-in 2 weeks before the raid happened. And our advocates are taking pictures and documenting this so that we're vigilant and we're trying to respond to whatever happens. So we knew something was going to happen around Grand Island, right? 1 week before the raid, they started putting tents up. So you see them, right? We're done assuming we're 100% that they're coming, that they're here, they're going to come, something's going to happen. We went, we knocked on their door, we talked to their supervising officer. They told us they were doing a training. Right? So we put it out. We say, hey, they said it's a training. But I don't believe that. And we have our reservations because we don't know. Is it going to happen? Is nothing going to happen? Is it really a training? Because they had this mobile command center? Who knows? So then the day happened. I know that we didn't have enough capacity to supervise the location 24 hours, right? But that morning, they took a bus and various vans up to O'Neill, which is 2 hours north of Grand Island, and detained up to 100 to 133 individuals in 11 different locations in O'Neill. Okay? We knew it was going to hit. We thought it was going to be Gibbon, Kearney, Lexington, Hastings. We never thought O'Neill, Nebraska, and the resources in O'Neill for immigration work are very low. So it was very much a satellite situation. They were by themselves, no resources. 2 weeks before then, one of my awesome mentors, her name is Yolanda Nuncio from Grand Island, 2 weeks before, she went up to O'Neill and did a Know Your Rights class. Okay? And then the Know Your Rights involves these red cards. And I'll talk a little bit more about these towards the end. And remind me if I forget, because I do. But just be aware. So we're trying to do our best to be able to educate our communities and tell them what their rights are. But unfortunately, we were not able to teach everybody. We do know that some said, I don't trust you, I'm not signing this paperwork, I need to speak to a lawyer. But we also know people didn't know their rights, so then they signed the paperwork. Either because they're illiterate, uneducated, or just because they really believed whatever the ICE agent was saying.
Well, what does the paperwork say? And how are ICE agents making initial contact in what environments or contexts? Are they going to, I think there was a potato factory or
Right.
something up there. Do they just go to the work site, and if you look Hispanic, you're presumed to perhaps be suspected as being undocumented, and so they approach? Or do they go to the office, get records, and see something that's fishy, and then call people in one at a time? How is their suspicion to make initial contact triggered?
Okay.
And how, in what context does that occur?
Well, the history of it is that there was a federal indictment on 11 different employers. Okay, that was their purpose for going to O'Neill, to reach those 11 employers. At those 11 employers, the main one that got targeted in O'Neill was Venture Farms, and they're the tomato plant. Yep. And I asked, okay, so what happened that day? You know, I wasn't here. How did it look? State patrol everywhere, white SUVs everywhere, drones everywhere, armed agents everywhere, and it was equal opportunity for all. So they did search white individuals that worked at the tomato plant. And we have talked to some of them, and they said they felt violated by the way they were searched. So I can only imagine our undocumented females. Yeah.
But the reason they targeted that place is because of the other sort of folks who were indicted for having exploited or brought undocumented people to the facility in the first place.
Correct.
So that's why they targeted that particular employment location. And you're saying they didn't discriminate, they just went in and checked everybody as a, I guess, a pretext of being fair, knowing that it's kind of like shooting carp in a barrel. They're going to get some undocumented.
Right, yep. And regarding the office, they raided the office. They locked the managers in their offices so they could not tell what's happening outside. And they did arrest some of the owners of these employers. The main one that they were seeking is JP and Sons LLC, and that is I think it's Juan Pablo, and he is also undocumented. He is the one that I'm referring to, that he did make people buy food at his store, pay $60 to $100 to cash their check, pay $400 to $500 every other week for their utilities, pay $100 if not more on their rent. And you know, Brian mentioned, hey, they would rather do this because of the opportunity. But at the end of the day, it's still exploitation. Regardless of how we see it, you know, our people may not be able to say, hey, I have rights, but we know that they're being exploited. And it's just teaching in that education and their workers' rights that we need to teach. Okay. So we knew it was coming. We just didn't know they were going to go 2 hours north. Okay. So the day of, I am from the Trinidad Center. I have my own rapid response team in Lexington. I sent out an email to my rapid response team and said, hey, headed to O'Neill, gonna go help. Do you guys want to come with me? I have one UNK student and one Netherlands student. So I had 2 college students that came with me. And it turns out that we became the rapid response team for O'Neill. What is eye-opening at this situation at this time is that unfortunately as a state we are not organized to the point that we have a rapid response team to go to a rural area and respond on behalf of them. I was surprised as much as you are, because I honestly thought I was just going to go help. And then I became it. You know, the person, which is okay because I needed to be that person at that time. Which concerns me is for all of you that are in your communities, what happens, right? Is a Gladys going to go show up? Or what's going to be the response within your community? And this is a large concern of mine. We're going to meet with a lot of orgs next week, and I'm going to voice my opinions there. But it was interesting. But we worked. my 2 college students and I stayed up 22 hours a day for 3 full days at the very least, and then I have been there since August 8th. So I have at the very least been there once a week, if not the whole week, to be able to assist with the response. But it's thanks to not only obviously the Trinidad Center, but Center for Rural Affairs that said, hey Gladys, it's okay for you to go help the response for the raid. You know, if they would have said no 2 weeks before the raid, then who would have been there to help them? Is my question. So that's something I'm trying to figure out an answer to, because we definitely need it as soon as possible. We don't believe this is going to be the only raid. We do believe more are coming. So we need to prepare our community to be able to be ready for a response. Okay? Yes.
You said your sister works for the ACLU. Are they looking into human trafficking, labor trafficking issues then around the O'Neill thing?
Yes. So we have legally, I know they're trying to do U visas, which is domestic violence or sex trafficking visas, and T visas, which are trafficking visas, because of what has happened. Now, just to be transparent, a U visa and a T visa are going to take up to 5 to 10 years to be able to prove a case and obtain a work permit. Okay? I'm not an attorney, but that's what they have told me, and I'm just sharing that with you. So, is there an immediate turnaround? Do they have immediate relief?
But I mean, even thinking about charges against the companies. Is the ACLU looking into charges against the companies?
So, the federal
already indicted
court,
them.
they're already indicted, right? If anything that I've heard, and these are just from my understanding stories from individuals that have told me, there are individuals that are being promised by ICE that they're going to get a work permit if they testify against the 11 that were indicted. But they're picking and choosing.
Yeah. So could you go through those 3 Bs? So that U visa is the domestic violence visa,
Right.
and then the T visa is for people who have been workers who've been trafficked.
Correct.
And then the third one is the sex trafficking visa.
That's along with the T visa.
That's also, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's interesting because you would think, hey, if you're giving 5 individuals relief and you're going to give them a work permit, why not the whole group?
Right.
You know?
Yeah, they were exploited.
Right, right. So within 24 hours of the raid, ICE, never heard of before, took them back to O'Neill and released the majority of them. I have never heard of that. The fact that they brought them back, you know, took them, yanked them from their workplace, took them to ICE, processed them, and returned them to O'Neill. Never in my life have I heard of that type of situation. It is unheard of. So they started releasing every 2 hours individuals within those 24 hours until 7 a.m. the next morning. So they were traveling every 2 hours back to O'Neill. Okay? So I was waiting at Casey's at 3 a.m. for released detainees to come out so then I can get their names. Because my biggest task at that moment was figuring out who they detained, who are their family members, and how we can get them legal representation as soon as possible. Okay? Yes?
You may have already covered this, but so does Nebraska have an immigration detention center?
Yes, it's out of Omaha. Yes.
Not everybody was returned to the O'Neill.
Not everybody was returned.
Were you able to discern why some were not returned?
No. Again, that pick and choosing was happening a lot. But the majority of the ones they released didn't have a criminal record and were working under their name instead of a false name and social security number.
So you could tease out some,
Right.
some were arguably detained for criminal violations.
Correct. Correct.
So was it about 80 who were released then? Or?
I'm going to say 60 to 70. And we're getting trickles of people coming back home from, so even 2 weeks or after 3 weeks, they started moving people around. So we had people in Phelps County, we had people in Hall County, we had people in not in Dawson County, Douglas County, we had people in Dakota County, we had people in Minnesota, Iowa, Louisiana.
Wow.
And we, as in we, but the whole group, right, not just me, we're coordinating efforts with immigrant advocacy groups from each state to be able to get legal services in those states. Yes.
Oh, just as a sort of follow-up, just like, what's the actual capacity in Nebraska, like, to provide legal aid to people? Because I'm just imagining, like, 133 people all of a sudden one day, like, are there nearly enough, like, immigration lawyers to actually help that many people, particularly in the front of the state?
Well, in my Nebraska Nice slide, we have 89 people that have gotten representation. Due to private attorneys saying, I'll do pro bono work for you, or a nonprofit organization saying, we'll take 20 to 30 cases.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so Nebraska Nice is definitely, we're showing up.
Okay, so is there an organization that like coordinates all the things? Okay.
Yep, it's called the Immigrant Legal Center, and I'll talk a little bit about them here soon.
Gladys, we've got about 15 minutes left, so I'm wondering if you should be
just keep going
through this and maybe hold the questions until the end.
Oh, I'm a chatter. Okay. So 11 out of 13 companies were rated in Nebraska the same day. We had Minneapolis and Nevada as well. A total of 133 workers, mostly Nebraskans. Towns affected, all rural towns. Stromsburg, I've never heard of in my whole entire life. Ainsworth, Atkinson, Royal, Bartlett, and of course O'Neill. And O'Neill became the hub for any assistance out of Nebraska. All right, so actions during the raid. We had legal services. The Immigrant Legal Center was on top of it. They're out of Omaha. They rock. I love them. They were my partners in crime. Media, we had a lot of media the day of. A lot of media. And unfortunately, we did not prepare people enough to not put their faces, their full names, and or the location where they were at. And unfortunately, we had disrespectful marketing people, media people, that gave away the location where they were safe at. So I kicked them out of the United Methodist Church, but they were not kicked out of different other churches that they should have been kicked out of. And we want media there. We want the story to be told. But we also want, as an advocate, I want to seek safety first. Religious. If the United Methodist Church, the Catholic Church, the Assembly of God didn't say we'll take care of our people, these people would be stranded. One of the main churches that was the main response hub was Bethany Evangelical Church. It's Spanish speaking, and the pastor there housed up to 50 individuals at a time in his church because they didn't want to leave because they were scared. So our religious leaders need to be at the table when we try to build a response team in our community. Community-wise, I shared with you O'Neill Cares Coalition. They built themselves that same day. They came together, said, Gladys, what do we need to do? And we started writing down what they needed to do. The school system. And if you've been on top of this raid, you know Amy Shane's. And she's my best friend. So I love her. She is such a wonderful lady. I'm so jealous. I want to steal her and take her to Lexington. But I can't. But she is a wonderful lady. She is a blessing. She has allowed her school system. She's allowed, she's given money to these families. She's given a lot of time. I see her every Thursday that I go up there. She is, I don't know, other than an angel, I don't know how to describe her. She's an awesome person. One thing with the school system, though, that did happen, not blaming them, but just putting it out there, when they received the kids and they started giving them to their family members, they did not take names of the people that picked up the kids. That's a big liability. So, rapid response team, we have to educate our school system. They cannot allow kids to leave their schools without knowing who's picking those kids up. Okay? And without a warrant, legally, no kid should be going with ICE. So there's a whole nother workshop if we want to talk about schools and ICE. Mental health, we have in Black, Lutheran Family Services is coordinating mental health services every Thursday at our food pantry at the United Methodist Church. So when people come, they can talk and they can share because they are depressed, they're anxious, they're fearful, and just a lot of things are going through their mind. So we're blessed that we have that as well. Medical care, we are trying to work with the hospitals and clinics within O'Neill to see if we can figure out how we can get individuals assistance. I shared before that we have Medicaid to 2 pregnant ladies, so we were able to get them the assistance they needed for doctor appointments. Statewide organizations, Legal Immigrant Center, ACLU of Nebraska, Lutheran Family Services, Heartland Workers Center, Multicultural Coalition of Grand Island. I think at the very least 30 to 50 different organizations from the state have showed up, either volunteers, financially, or brought food and donations. So just, it has been a statewide response. I may be the lead organizer, but I definitely didn't do it alone. Nationwide organizations, I have to say this, that I don't know if you know of these organizations or not. We had 2 national organizations that came. One's Cosecha Movimiento, and the other one is LULAC. Cosecha we never knew, we never met, and they wanted confidential information. We didn't give it to them, they left.
Surprise.
LULAC, I've known both organizations before this raid because I follow a lot of advocacy groups. LULAC is one of them that I followed and I thought I respected, but unfortunately, the community organizer that came disrupted our organizing locally and took information and promised false promises. Now, I'm not one to speak ill of anybody else, but unfortunately, these 2 nationwide organizations did not come to help. They came to disrupt.
Are they governmental or?
No, they're, I don't know if they're nonprofit. Cosecha's not nonprofit, and LULAC I'm not sure if nonprofit or not, but they're both advocacy groups for immigrants and workers' rights.
Wow.
It is sad, I was sad and disappointed in all of the above. But for future reference, if it were to happen in Lexington, I would kick them both out.
It's too bad.
It is too bad, because it would have been nice to have a coordinating effort.
What do you think their game was? What was their interest in?
For Cosecha, I know that they were trying to do workers' rights and rallies in O'Neill. As you know, rural Nebraska is not going to see a rally right after, or workers' rights right after the raid, as something positive. We were trying to, O'Neill is very much a conservative town. So at O'Neill, we know we were already fighting stereotypes and myths. To add to the fire at the time of need was not the right thing to do.
And you've got about 10 minutes.
Thank you, thank you. And LULAC put up a donation site. They posted their stuff on Facebook. They posted, like I did here, but they're not CFRA, but they posted LULAC posters throughout the church that was sanctuary for a lot of our immigrant neighbors. And we were wondering what's happening here, And they told us a lot of the people, community members, said they promised us attorneys, they promised us financial assistance, they promised us X, Y, and Z, and none of that to this date has come.
Can we hold the questions if you can get through her program, please?
Okay, aftermath. Legal representation, I've shared. Most of the individuals have gotten legal representation already. Deportations, we have individuals, at the very least 10 to 20 individuals that have been deported already. People detained, so we had 2 different types of cases, 3 really. 1, people were detained and kept. 2, people were detained, released within the first 24 hours. And 3 people were indicted, detained, and federally convicted. We, as a nonprofit organization, and as our legal services team from Immigrant Legal Center, could not represent the federally indicted individuals because of issues that happened between them and the individuals we were trying to help. So this set was done by private attorneys. Okay. I've mentioned it to you before, and I can mention it again, but separation of families. We had a child that was 8 days old the day of, and his father was detained, and is going to be deported here soon. The mom has 2 kids. One's 2 years old. The other one now is a month. And she's planning to move back to Mexico because her husband's going to be deported. Jobless. Even if they had relief, and through transparency, they're not going to get work permits until 5 to 10 years ago, 10 years from now. So they're in this limbo. And then a state of crisis that we're currently at for our immigrant friends, it's going to be really hard to live in the shadows at this time, to survive. Because even the donations are coming and we're trying to help with rent and utilities, there's no way the money's going to come for 5 to 10 years. And there's no way they're going to want to sit at home for 5 to 10 years. They want to be productive citizens of the United States. They have asked us, Gladys, how can I pay you back? What can we do to contribute? Because you're giving us money, but we're not doing anything. So, you know, I don't know. That limbo is interesting. The news clip is about 10 minutes, so I'm going to skip it. Nebraska nice. So this is the good news, right? There's some good news coming. The O'Neill Cares Coalition, we've had more than 100 volunteers, which is awesome. More than $30,000 in financial assistance with matching funds up to $100,000 for a donor from Omaha. Most have legal representation, at the very least 89. I have met with at the very least 100 individuals. First United Methodist Church of O'Neill, if they didn't open their doors to us, I don't know where we would be at. Okay? Basic needs food pantries. The Methodist Church is housing the pantry. We do it every week on Thursdays from 11 to 7. Individuals get a weekly, I don't want to call it ration, but a weekly food box to be able to take with them, and at the same time they get a chance to talk to me, legal representation, mental health representation. So we have a resource there while they're there. Mental health, I already shared with you. Other legal assistance, Legal Aid of Nebraska is currently working with me because we do have rumors of workers' violations, specifically safety violations. Adventure Farms, which is a tomato plant there, we are aware that they were overworked, not given breaks, not given water breaks, and it was 100 to 130 degrees within a tomato farm, so you know they're in a greenhouse. We know that pregnant women lost kids there, and we are aware that a lot of people didn't get medical care that they were required to get.
And they know no other labor people, they can't find no other labor people to stay there.
Right.
For every one of their reasons of wages going down.
Yep. So my understanding is they're getting bankrupt, they're not being able to hire in more individuals. Wonder why. So there's not a lot of people there that are willing to work at the tomato farm. They did bust in a whole nother lot, but and I say lot, not in a bad way, so I apologize if that's found. But they did bust in a lot more other migrant workers, but they are not getting enough work to be able to continue, so the rumor is that they're shutting down. Which, with their abuse, I'm kind of happy that they're shutting down.
Right.
Back back to school drive, we were able to provide more than 50 backpacks with school supplies. Amy was able to recoup that with the United Methodist Church. And as well, Amy didn't charge the fees of the computers. You know, there's a lot of little things that we don't think about until it actually happens and they can't afford. So Amy and the school system definitely stepped up. Advocacy, gas cards for check-ins in court hearings. So the Grand Island Multicultural Coalition is able and willing to give gas assistance to individuals that have to go to their check-ins and or court hearings. The catch is who's going to drive.
Yeah.
So we're trying to coordinate rides. And we as in the churches. Advocacy, I'm there. We try to help and listen and express whatever concerns are currently happening with our immigrant population to the Neil Cares Coalition, because most of them are white, and obviously all of the affected community is Hispanic and limited English. So at this moment I'm the glue trying to hold both communities together, but my hope is that somehow we can integrate that community so then they themselves can have that conversation. Rallies. We did have rallies at Grand Island that I'm aware of. I think Omaha and Lincoln did hold some as well. My hope is that if we still have detained individuals within the next few weeks, that we call another rally statewide wherever those detention centers are. But that's me as a rally person. Actions you can take. So Nebraska Appleseed is holding rapid response training. You're more than welcome to reach out to Nebraska Appleseed and get signed up for that. Lexington's going to hold one. I'm still trying to figure out dates yet, but I know they had one in Hastings and they had one in the Grand Island recently. Stay vigilant, report what you see. I have business cards here, so if you see anything fishy, email them to me. I want to skip down to confirm ICE activity before making it public. Our biggest concern is that once we start reporting it, fear, panic, and everything that comes with it will come with it as well. So if we can confirm the sighting, that would be great. So then we give factual information whenever we give information out. Donate funds to the Neil Cares Coalition. I did bring up the website. It's St. Patrick's Catholic Church, and it is called Community Family Assistance. So if you want to do it directly to them, you can. And I'll show you the website here soon. Get to know your immigrant refugee neighbors. You know, I shared with you at the beginning, just get to know us before putting us in a little box and stereotyping us. Confidentiality matters. I think this was one of my biggest concerns throughout. There were so many organizations, so many volunteers, way too many people trying to help at the same time. I want to make sure that the confidentiality of our immigrant neighbors is kept. So we did do a confidentiality sheet. All volunteers have to sign it if they come, because it is important that they know that it is a safe place for them to come. Be part of our network. If you reach out to Nebraska Appleseed, they'll add you to our network. If you reach out to me, I'll make sure the information gets to Nebraska Appleseed so that you are aware of what's happening throughout our state. And then build a rapid response team. So a committee would look like, ideally, because we all know we can't, our volunteer base can be small. Legal, law enforcement, faith leaders, advocacy leaders, media contacts, schools contacts, elected officials, and community liaisons. Now this doesn't mean that they have to be from these places. It just means that whoever chooses to be that committee member is in contact with these places. What I did notice is I'm happy, and I have, like if you were to build your own rapid response team, I have sign-up sheets for that. Again, Nebraska Appleseed is doing the rapid response training, so they would be the ones that would kind of coordinate this with you. But you're more than welcome to take one of these so you can see what a sign-up sheet would look like. Okay. And I think, yeah, okay. Vote. I don't think I have to tell you guys, but make sure you go out and vote in November. The elections do matter. There's a lot of things happening right now. And Adrian Smith, Deb Fisher, and Don Bacon have not, and if they have not spoken on behalf of immigrants, and or been on our side throughout the past 2 years that I've been